hosts and commentators.
Don't you ever talk about me!
Are you serious?
Jack Ebling has brought thought-provoking discussion.
What are you doing? That's a damn coaching mistake.
Opinion.
The customer is the one who decides when the future gets here.
Oh, no! The ship is on fire!
You have to check the report.
Are you kidding me? That game was fixed.
And overall infotainment.
I'll take Jim Harbaugh.
What has he done?
Crazy Cooter coming at you.
Quiet, please. In exactly 15 seconds, we'll be on the air.
Thanks, big fella.
Don't you ever come back here again!
No arguments. Those are called ass tunes.
So buckle up.
You talking to me?
It's time for The Drive with Jack Ebling.
Yeah, for some reason or another, you sound a little tall on radio.
Great afternoon, Mid-Michigan and beyond, and welcome to The Drive with Jack, the Spotlight Radio Network. Jack Ebling here with my producer, Alex Heward. All of our Wednesday shows brought to you by Graf of Okemos, 107 years in the automobile business. Alex, let's go right out to our guest line. Very happy to welcome Matt Shepard, one of the most versatile voices you will find in sports media, and he is the television play-by-play broadcaster for the Detroit Tigers. Matt, congratulations on making this season much more watchable than I thought it was going to be. I know you didn't throw any no-hitters and you didn't have any walk-off home runs, but I think a lot of Tigers fans really enjoyed the broadcast.
Jack, you're a good friend of mine. You're very complimentary, but it's the Tigers on-the-field product that made it more enjoyable. But I do appreciate it because I love my job so much and love working with the people I work with. But, yeah, it was a lot of fun this season, but thanks for the kind words.
What was it that maybe impressed you the most about this team or surprised you, what you expected?
I think their resolve. I think their ability to come back and beat teams, or even in games, even if they lost it, to come back and fight. Now, was it 162? No. But, look, every team gets blown out once in a while. It happened to the Dodgers. It happened to the Giants. It's happened to the Red Sox and the Yankees and the Rays. It's going to happen. What I thought best this team did was forget about a bad loss, forget about a really good win, and focus on the next day. That is not an easy thing to do, especially down the stretch when you see the finish line. It's something A.J. Hinch and his staff preached from day one in Lakeland. They kept preaching it all the way until early October, and for the most part, I thought his team really adhered to those words. So that was really impressive to me. And in addition to that, Jack, of course, a lot of the individual performances that you've talked about on your show over the year, and over the season, about some of the surprises that some of those guys were able to do.
Matt, with very few exceptions, winning is a process, and it sounds like Nick Saban. But where are the Tigers on that continuum going from where they were to where they want to be?
Yeah, it's a good question. I do think people always want to know when are they going to make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So much is dependent on what they do in the off season, how healthy they can stay during the season, and what other teams are doing during that same time frame. I'll give you an example. You look at what Boston did from last year to this year. I don't think many people would have expected that.
No.
I don't think many people would have expected Seattle to contend the way they did.
Right.
I'm not sure too many people thought the Giants would do what they did.
No.
Or, in contrast, see how poorly San Diego did after winning the offseason, and now they just had to let go of their manager moments ago. So what is it that other teams are doing, and how active can Al Avila, A.J. Hinch, and the Tigers be in trying to fill some voids that this team obviously needs filled?
How active can they be, and how much money? It's always easy to spend someone else's cash, but some people are talking about you got to get this high price free agent and this one. And Tigers have made it known that when they thought the time was right, they would spend some money. Would you expect to see another high priced player on the roster this next year?
Well, we all want the sexy names.
Yeah.
We want the high war players that also come with that a very expensive price tag.
Correct.
And I would ask you, and I've said this before, do you think the Mets have any regrets in paying James McCann and Francisco Lindor those heavy contracts?
Didn't work out, did it?
Do you think San Diego, who is rumored, it's a rumor, to be offering up Manny Machado, do you think they are happy that they spent 10 years, $300 million on that? I think you got to be really careful. It's easy to spend other people's money, especially when you're not responsible for the consequences when you've decided to spend it. You know, this is not a fantasy baseball league.
Yeah.
You can't go out and say, I want Max Scherzer, I want Carlos Correa, and, you know, give me Christian Vasquez behind the plate, all our free agents and all in positions of need. It's not the way it works. We did this on Bally Sports. You may have texted me during the broadcast when we did it.
Mm-hmm.
We looked at wins above replacement, WAR players. What do you need to get to, and where are the Tigers? The Tigers are a 24.5 WAR team this year. You need to get to about 40 in order for you to have a playoff team. There's an exception. St. Louis, for example, Seattle, even though they didn't make the playoffs.
Right.
How do you make up 16 WAR, Jack? Well, every one of the players you're going to bring back, Jamer Candelario, Robbie Grossman, all those guys, right?
Yeah.
Those guys need to improve their play, maybe half to one full WAR. You need to have Casey Mize and Tarek Skubal and Matt Manning improve their WAR. Then, if you bring on two young players like Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson, for example, can they be 2 WAR players, average players? Absolutely they can. And then you've got to go out and you've got to sign a frontline pitcher who's going to give you about 170 innings, 160, 170 innings, which isn't asking too much. And you've got to go out and you've got to get a shortstop who doesn't have to come with it a 10-year, $350 million contract, and he doesn't necessarily have to be a 7 WAR player either. But it'd be nice if they were somewhere in the middle. A 3.5 WAR player would be a really solid addition to this team because they were a -2 WAR at the shortstop position this year. So you'd be literally having a 5.5 WAR improvement at that spot if you got a player like J.P. Crawford of Seattle.
Again, Matt, we know you're not writing the checks, but would you be surprised if the Tigers added a player who was plus $25 million to the payroll?
I would, because that's one player. How much more money will you have to spend on the other needs? So if you and I sat down, had a beer like we have before, how many players do you think they need? They need at least one starting pitcher. Is that fair?
True.
You think they need a bullpen arm?
Yes.
Okay. You think they need a catcher who can catch 70 games, and they need a shortstop? That's 4 players right there. They had a payroll of what, $84 million, somewhere in that neighborhood. I could be off a little bit, but let's just round it to 85. Let's just say it's 85. What's it going to be next year? If you get a $25 million a year player, you're talking well over $100 million right there, and you haven't addressed the other areas of need. I don't think you can put so much money into one player where it comes at the expense of the other positions of need, if that makes sense. Now, do I like a guy like Marcus Semien? Yeah, he could play shortstop for me. You know, he's 30, 31 years old. You sign him to a 3-year contract. It wouldn't be, handcuffing you for the future. Could you get him for 20, 3 years, $60 million? I don't know the answer to that. If that were a possibility, I would be all in on that.
Yeah.
He's got to want to come here too, though, Jeff.
True.
And players aren't going to want to come here if they don't have a chance to win. And in order for you to have a chance to win, you've got to address the other situations. Players are smart. They know exactly what's going on. They know what other teams are doing. And the Tigers are doing some really good things. I can tell you this. There was a player who approached a prominent Detroit player this year and said, hey, man, I'd love to come and play for you guys. The response from that prominent player was, if you come here, you got to work. There's no free passes here. Trust me, you will have to be ready for infield practice when you're supposed to, ready for outfield practice when you're supposed to. There is no slacking off. That is a huge deal and part of the culture that has been changed here. Players will want to come here. They want to win, and they want to get paid. And there's a lot of good players out there who are in current good situations where both that can happen. It doesn't mean Detroit isn't a desirable place, but Marcus Semien's a really good example. Do you think Toronto would like to keep him?
Sure.
Okay. I mean, and they were a game away from making the wild card. So those are all factors in it. I just don't think $25 million a year for a player, depending on how long the contract may be, is something that the Tigers are willing to risk if it's going to offset the money from some of the other positions that they need. Keep this in mind. I mean, there are other players on this team right now, Javier Candelario, for example. Some guys arbitration eligible. You're going to have to kick in a little bit more money for a guy like Candelario, like a guy like Fulmer, guys like Soto. They're going to command more money, and they're going to deserve it.
Yeah, and a lot of fans, Matt, say, well, it worked with Pudge, and he came to a situation where no one saw the Tigers winning the way that they did, and Tigers took a chance on him with some health issues. He took a chance on them, and everything worked well. But it doesn't always happen that way. And I think the other thing to remember is everybody loves Miguel Cabrera at this point, and they all want to see him get 600 doubles and 3,000 hits to go with the 500 home runs. But he carries a pretty hefty price tag and will until he is done here. And he's not maybe having a $30 million production with it, but that's part of your payroll.
Absolutely. It's part of your payroll. It probably limits you on what you can do, but there's nothing you're going to be able to do about it now.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really make any sense to dwell on it too much. All the Tigers can really dwell on is how are they going to improve that team and who can they get. I would remind people it wasn't just Pudge Rodriguez. He was the biggest name. But when you get Placido Polanco over here, and you get guys like Carlos Guillen and Maglio Ordonez to go along with guys like Curtis Grant, I mean, those were important moves. I don't recall. You can help me if your memory's better. When Placido Polanco came to Detroit, how many people were raising a flag and going, "This is an awesome pickup"?
Nobody.
I don't remember anybody talking about that.
No.
But you know what they did? They talked about him in the postseason, didn't they? Because he was one of the most important players on that team.
Matt, again, going back to this process argument, do you think maybe the Tigers are a year away from being able to attract a free agent like that, even if they wanted to, even if they were willing to spend to get players across the league to believe, okay, this is the place to be?
No, I don't.
Okay.
And I say no because I think A.J. Hinch makes that big of a difference. I think players recognized it. We've heard players. I mean, the beauty of what we're able to do this year is go on the field and talk to opposing players and coaches. All of them recognize the difference in play. And it's not just winning baseball 77 games. It's the style in which this team played this year. Other teams have taken note. I would also say this, Jack, and I don't think enough has been made of this, but if you're a pitcher, wouldn't you want to come to Comerica Park and get some really big numbers because of the fact that it's more of a pitcher-friendly ballpark than anything else?
Yeah.
I don't think the Tigers will. Look, Chris Fetter, and what Chris Fetter and Scott Coolbaugh have done, we talk about A.J. Hinch, and rightfully so, but what those guys have done, and George Lombard too, the coaching staff was phenomenal this year. Chris Fetter made a massive difference in so many different pitchers. Think about Willie Peralta. Think about Tyler Alexander. Think about Kyle Funkhauser and how much better they got with Chris Fetter as the pitching coach. And then Scott Coolbaugh takes a team that was struggling to find the zone, struggling to swing in the zone. The numbers aren't perfect by any stretch, but they were a lot better after that 9-24 start when they started having everyday hitters meetings, and he's a straight shooter. I think a lot of players appreciate that. I think it's a desirable place to come and play for a lot of different reasons. But I also think they recognize that this team is on the come. The difference, though, is the fact that this division is, too. I think Kansas City's the sleeping giant, and Chicago's not going anywhere anytime soon because of their talent. It's going to be a tough division to win, no question, moving forward.
Matt, when you talk about the ballpark and the advantages that might have in attracting a pitcher, does that work the other way? And are there hitters who would say, given the choice, if I've got two opportunities that are about the same, do I really want to play in Comerica Park?
Well, I think it depends on the player. I could say this, and we've said this on the air, Nelson Cruz, Eloy Jimenez, Jose Abreu, Tim Anderson, they don't have a problem hitting in Comerica Park.
Yeah.
It's been a while since somebody complained about it, Nick Castellanos. And you look at his numbers, and he went to Cincinnati, which is a bit of a bandbox. But, look, if you're – look at what Robbie Grossman was able to do.
Yeah.
That's the example I use. When Robbie Grossman signed, I bet you didn't get one call from your intelligent audience where everyone's going, now this is the kind of player I want.
No.
And yet what does he do? He goes out and becomes, I think, the 7th player in Tigers history to have a 20-20-20 season.
Right.
20 homers, 20 stolen bags, and 20 doubles.
Right.
He had a career year. He didn't have it in Oakland. He didn't have it in Minnesota. He had it in Detroit. Career high in games played, hits, homers, stolen bases, total bases, all that stuff. It didn't hurt him that much. He led the team in home runs, and I know they weren't all at home, but they sure weren't all on the road either.
Yeah, I remember one at home against the Yankees and nearly knocked them out of the playoffs. But there were some great stories this year, and I think a lot of people always assume that players are going to get better. That is the natural progression and expectation.
Right.
But Akil Baddoo played better than anyone imagined. Eric Haas played better than anyone imagined. Is it reasonable to assume that they're going to be on a steady ascent? Because sometimes guys have fall-offs.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Guys have fall-offs. Coaches have fall-offs. We've seen coaches of the year, for crying out loud, get fired. Paul Molitor, for example, a Jason Kidd in the NBA. I don't assume they're automatically going to become better. I don't think that's always fair to the player. I look at the player's work ethic, and I see how much better they want to get and what they're doing to try and get better. And I think with Akil Baddoo and how hard he worked with a guy like George Lombard on his outfield on a day-to-day basis, I'll guarantee you, Akil Baddoo wants to get better defensively more than he wants to get better offensively. Mm-hmm. Eric Haas, I do believe, you got to remember, these two guys, they didn't play 162 games in their careers. They've never done that. This year really helped them get that under their belt, get the feeling of what it's like to play into October, not as deep as they would like to. Do I expect 22 home runs from Eric Haas? You saw how teams adjusted to him, right? You saw how teams started pitching him. He's going to have to make some adjustments back, and that's going to have to be an ongoing thing. I was more impressed at how Eric Haas improved his defense than his offense and how he called the game. But I don't think it's fair to just assume that any player is going to be automatically better. But I do believe two guys with their work ethic, I think it's fair to assume they're going to do everything they can to improve upon their numbers, or at least the same. Look, if Akil Baddoo bats .270, gives you 18 stolen bags, hits you 15 home runs at the top of the lineup, absolutely you would. But he's got to get better defensively. If Eric Haas handles a pitching staff, does not framing pitches, and I know that stat can be overrated, hits you 22 bombs, but at least he hits you 240, and he drives in 70 runs, would you take it? Absolutely, because he's going to play half a season. He's going to be 100. He's going to be a 90 to 100 game catcher for you. And those numbers, with you got to take that in addition to the guy who's playing alongside him, call him a backup, go right ahead. That's a lot of production from a catcher. If you're getting 20 home runs from one of your two catchers, and let's say the other catcher gives you 10, you're getting 30 homers from the catching position?
Yeah.
Whew, absolutely you're taking that as long as they're providing good defense. Mike Zunino for Tampa had, 31 homers this year, and everybody loved him. He hit like 205 or something like that, but he also led baseball in pass balls. I'll guarantee you, Mike Zunino, when you talk to him, he wants to improve his defense more than he does the home run power.
Matt, the pitching restrictions, pitch counts and innings limits for the young arms, would you expect them to disappear or be lifted significantly in 2022?
I think they'll be lifted significantly, and I say that because I am fully confident this team is going to improve its defense. And I can't tell you how many times you were probably watching at home and you're going, okay, that should have been made. That play should have been made. That error it might cost them. How many extra pitches did Mize and Skubal or Manning and those guys have because they were let down defensively? And I think that's going to greatly improve. I think that's going to help them. And I think the Tigers did the right thing, the smart thing with all their young pitchers this year in handling it. So I've said this before, and stop me if I'm repetitive, and I don't mean to be, but we said this during our Valley broadcast. If you look at the White Sox and the Astros, Jack, they had 880-plus innings from their starting staff, only from their starting staff. The Tigers had 100 innings less than that. How are you going to make that up?
Yeah.
You're going to make it up by Casey Mize and Tarik Skubal. Instead of 150, let's just say for sake of argument, it's 175. Okay?
All right.
That's 25 each. So there's 50. Matt Manning goes from what, 90 to let's say 150. All right? So there's 60 innings. You get 100 innings from a guy like Willie Peralta or a Tyler Alexander, which would be great. But you also sign a significant off-season pitcher that can give you 170 innings, and you are there. You're amongst the best players, or teams, I should say, with players in the American League to try and compete. It's got to be a good pitcher. I'll tell you, Jack, I would much rather see that kind of addition if you gave the Tigers a front-line starting pitcher who's going to give you 170 innings, give you 32 starts, give you 25 quality starts. I think that gets you closer to anything than you could do from a position player-wise.
Okay. I wanted to ask you about the postseason now. And did you wake up Monday morning and say, who's my pick to stick?
No, but I woke up. I went to bed last night thinking, God, I wish I could have called that game. Only the Tigers were in it.
Yeah.
So, no, I wasn't thinking about pick the stick. I was thinking about wishing the Tigers season was longer.
Were you surprised that the Yankees are done? And they were kind of a feast or famine team. Garrett Cole had been hit a few times down the stretch. And Boston outplayed him and got the big play it needed when Bogaerts threw Judge out at the plate. What do you make of these playoffs, and who are we able to see at the end of this month?
Well, I did pick New York, and I picked New York primarily because of Garrett Cole.
Yeah.
And Nathan Eovaldi had not pitched all that great against the Yankees recently. I thought Eovaldi was fantastic.
Yeah, he was.
Last night. Bogaerts, I've said this. I said this during the Red Sox series, not once but twice when the Tigers played him. I think he's one of the most underrated shortstops in baseball. He's one of those guys. He'd be one of the guys I would love to have on my team because he's better defensively than people give him credit for, and he's really good offensively, and he's a character guy.
Right.
I've said the same thing about Marcus Semien. Marcus Semien's a character guy. He adds a ton to your clubhouse. Doesn't just add to your team on the field. He adds to it off the field. But, yeah, I was a little surprised. New York had not been great offensively recently. However, they've been playing Tampa Bay, so I tried to keep that in mind. I thought, they missed LeMahieu, obviously, but their big guys did not do what they were supposed to do.
Right.
I mean, I'm sorry. And I've said this about the Yankees for a long time. They spend I think their payroll, Jack, is $205 million, something like that.
Yeah.
It's so top-heavy, where Stanton's a DH, Judge is a hell of a player. I don't know what they're going to do about re-signing him. They had Joey Gallo, Anthony Rizzo. Rizzo's a really good defensive first baseman. Outside of LeMahieu, the other guys you do not trust. Like Brett Gardner probably should have been done 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. It's a sentimental re-signing. Gary Sanchez, Gleyber Torres, not great defensively by any stretch. And your defense will always carry you, but offensively, if you go in the tank and you're terrible defensively, it really puts the hamstrings on your manager or ties you up with your manager because he can't put you in the lineup.
Right.
He can't put you in the lineup because of your defense. And if you're not hitting, he can't put you in the lineup because of your offense. So your offense has got to greatly overcome the lack of defense you provide your team. So that's a problem. You know, they lost Aaron Hicks at the beginning of the season. I thought that was a big blow. But remember, Jack, they gave him a huge contract a couple of years ago, and he's injury prone. It's constantly him on the IL, constantly gone for a season or long stretches. I wonder where they're going. I really do, because they've got so much money wrapped up in certain guys, and they need a guy like Aaron Judge to come back, because he not only does it offensively, he does it defensively. They got a big chore ahead of them to try and replace a lot of guys there. I mean, you can't do it with Rougned Odor. I'm sorry, you just can't.
Of the 4 teams remaining in the AL picture, Matt, you got the White Sox, you've got Stros,
Houston,
right? Yeah, and you've got Tampa and Boston.
Right.
Who's the last one standing?
Well, so I wonder if Tampa can get there, Jack, with only their bullpen. And Kevin Cash is a phenomenal manager.
Yeah.
But can they get there considering how much they rely on their bullpen? And I had this debate with A.J. Hinch. He goes, they got there last year. I go, yeah, it was 60 games, though, right?
Yeah.
Can they rely so heavily on their bullpen? And look, they've done it so far, so I give them a ton of credit.
Right.
I don't think they get enough credit. They've got 6 guys who are above 4 WAR players. That's pretty damn good. I think they're the odds-on favorite. I do like Chicago.
Yeah.
And here's why I like them. I like them because of their pitching. Their defense scares me. Eloy Jimenez scares me like nobody's business. Leori Garcia scares me like nobody's business. And Tim Anderson and Yohan Moncada on the left side of their infield kind of scare me. But their offense is so lethal, and their pitching is so good.
Mm-hmm.
Yasmani Grandal, if he's catching every day, and I would guess he would be, he is not a great catcher. He can hit, and he forces pitchers to go deep into counts, and he draws more walks than he strikes out, but he is not a good catcher. And the thing that scares me a little bit down the stretch with Chicago, Jack, is that they kind of let off the gas. I mean, they kind of had it on cruise control for a while. I don't think they've played with great intensity much down the stretch. But when you can throw Lance Lynn there and Lucas Giolito and Dylan Cease, that's powerful stuff. And then when you come out of the bullpen with a guy like Rodon, if he's healthy, Keuchel to mix it up, Bummer's got a really good arm. You've got Kimbrel and you've got Liam Hendricks at the end of the bullpen. That's a tough team to navigate, because I don't think they're ever out of it. So for a goof, I mean, I'll take Tampa and Chicago in the ALCS.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go with Tampa since they don't get enough credit. And then from a National League perspective, I just think it's really hard to pick against the Dodgers. I mean, with their arms, when you could throw Buehler and you can throw Scherzer and you can throw Urias, who won 20 games this year. I worry about their bullpen a little bit, but God, I love their lineup, especially with Trey Turner.
Yeah.
The loss of Muncy does hurt them. It does. I think it's phenomenal because you've got so many good teams. Like Milwaukee's really good, but nobody talks about them, right?
Yeah.
San Francisco gets looked over, and I just did it too because of the Dodgers. But, man, I mean, 106 wins, give me a break.
Yeah, Dodgers won 106, and Giants won 107, man.
Yeah, and they only won the division by 1, and L.A. has a play-in game tonight, and they won 106 games. So, I mean, I haven't picked St. Louis because I'm just not in on that. But
they did win 17 in a row.
Yeah,
right?
They did a really good job with that. And you got Wainwright tonight, which is
one-game knockout. I mean, the stranger things have happened, right?
I'll say this. I think the winner of San Francisco Dodgers meets Tampa in the World Series.
Okay.
I don't necessarily want to repeat.
Yeah.
And I don't root for Chicago in anything. But I would go Tampa and either Frisco or the Dodgers. I think what they've been able to do has just been phenomenal.
Well, I've become a Giants fan this year, and not because they're winning tons of games, and of course you want to be, have some wins, but the fact that they were picked to win 75.5, and they exceeded that by 31.5 games. Matt, they were picked to win 1.5 fewer games than the Tigers actually won. And here they are at 107. That's the most you found in a while in Major League.
Yeah,
so
they find a way. They find a way, Jack.
People can't identify 4 of their players.
Right. I know. I mean, when you're getting it done with Brandon Belt and Brandon Crawford, right, and you're getting it done with Posey and guys like that, and Yastrzemski, people are like, who are these guys, right? But But man, they have answered the challenge. Look at how good the Dodgers were the last month of the season, and they were not able to gain on Frisco. That tells you how steady and good Frisco has been. And they just, the Dodgers are so darn sexy because what they did a year ago and because of the big names. But, boy, San Francisco can ball.
Matt, I wanted to ask you a question about something other than baseball, believe it or not. And I want to welcome to the show Neil Koepke, longtime State of Michigan sports writer, MSUSpartans.com columnist, and My Human Hockey website. Neil, you just did a big piece on the Cold War, the 20th anniversary, and who did the broadcast of that game?
Well, I think it was some guy named Matt. He lives in Detroit, and he's been around for a while, but he has all this tendencies to dabble in other sports, basketball, now baseball, and of course hockey. And the thing is, Matt Shepard not only did the Cold War game, he also did the Big Chill at the Big House. Yeah. And before that, Michigan, Ohio State in Cleveland at then Jacobs Field. So he's sort of a veteran of these Cold War games.
He used to be an outdoor hockey broadcast specialist, right?
Exactly, yeah. Exactly.
What do you remember about that game, October 6th, 2001, Matt?
Yeah, Neil and I had a really fun and enjoyable conversation the other day. I remember the build-up where I was just hoping that the weather would turn nasty. So
you and Mark Hollis.
That game would, so that game would take place. And as I told Neil, I remember going there prior to the event and thinking to myself, what is this going to look like? Yeah. And just being in awe. And then when the game took place, the build-up, I love the build-up. I love talking with Ron Mason and Red Berenson, right? I love talking with players and listening to them and their stories so we can retell those stories. But I'll never forget when Michigan State and Michigan were introduced and walking out onto the ice, with fireworks and the flames and Ryan Miller walking out. And I'm thinking to myself, I literally said this to myself, this is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And as Neil and I talked more and more about it the other day, the more you recognize it's such a pioneer moment. It's such a moment that I think other sports recognized. And I'm not saying the Field of Dreams in Iowa took a chapter out of the Cold War, but don't tell me they didn't talk about it, because I bet they did. I mean, if anybody knows anything about sports and how the change of venues and the willingness to say, let's try this is the first place you look, what Mark Hollis and Michigan State were able to do. It was just a phenomenal event, and I loved every second of it. And for it to be that good of a game with that many good players, dare I say great players, because a lot of them have moved on, played in the NHL, won Stanley Cups, have been all league, this, that, and the other thing. You could not have asked for anything better. It was one of the more perfect moments, I think, in at least hockey history, but sports history.
Matt, did you have any trouble from broadcasting that game far away, more than you would in any other arena, basically, like baseball or hockey? And you're in the football press box. So what was it like to get up there and suddenly all these players around the ice? You obviously knew who they were, lines and all that, but was it difficult?
No, it was not, because I knew the teams well. We did a lot of research and a lot of studying on it. I worked with guys like, Billy and Fred, who were Billy Jaffe and Fred Fletch, who were very knowledgeable with the teams. And we had a chance to go watch them, practice a little bit and identify with it. So, and quite honestly, I mean, it jumped out at you. If you guys remember, I mean, the ice, everything, the lights, everything was so well done. Yeah. It did not. I was fearful of that originally. Look, I've been in a lot worse spots. Okay, I've been in where the Steelers play, Heinz Field, where you're all the way down at one end, or Cleveland Stadium, where you're down at one end, or Indianapolis. I had to call a Lions-Colts game from way up top. Those are a lot more challenging than the Cold War or the Big Chill. The lighting and the way it was presented really helped us.
Matt, 2 days before the game, I was with Hollis, and there was a lot of water on the surface, and some of it was running down his leg, actually. He was so concerned that this thing wasn't...
Jack Hollis even said that he remembers seeing the waves on the ice.
Oh, yeah.
As the water, and I thought it was.
I thought he was
going to
cry. He was standing there, and it's like this dream. It wasn't going to happen. When did you know that it was A, going to happen, and B, something we'd still be talking about?
I don't recall when I knew it was going to happen, but I knew it was something we were going to be talking about for a long time, just because of, again, the cool factor that was involved. I said this to Neil the other day. I remember, it's a big deal when you go into NHL locker rooms and you talk to players and they say, hey, you called the Cold War, didn't you? And I thought I remembered reading a quote from Wayne Gretzky where he said how much he enjoyed that and how great it was for hockey. And I thought to myself, holy crap, one of the greatest players to ever play that sport watched me call the game. And none of that was ever lost on me, knowing that, it's almost like calling a high school football state championships. You recognize all those kids, the DVR is going to be going right. They're going to remember that.
Yep.
But when you can go up to and you can introduce yourself, hey, to Duncan Keith, who's playing for the Blackhawks, and say, hey, if you got a second, I'd like to talk to you. By the way, I called that Cold War game. Oh, yeah, man. And then when you start talking about that, and then that breaks the ice, no pun intended, and you get a chance to talk a little bit deeper with those guys. And then when you talk to other players and hey, what was it like playing in the Winter Classic? Yeah, I called the Cold War game in the Big Show. Oh, you did? Yeah, man, those were really cool. I mean, it just opens up so many doors to a discussion and how cool it was. I get asked this all the time. What's the coolest thing you've ever called? So calling Miguel Cabrera's 500th home run is special. Calling a no-hitter from Spencer Turnbull is really cool. Calling 2 national championships games or Big Ten title games at Michigan, very cool. But in that conversation, in the discussion, without question, is calling the Cold War and the Big Chill. No offense to the one in Cleveland. It just was not as well attended. It wasn't put on as well. Our seating wasn't as good. Where we called those games from, the atmosphere, the pageantry that led up to these 2 games, specifically the Cold War, nothing has been like it. I mean, it's in that same realm. For me, those are top 10, dare I say, top 5 moments that I've ever called, and they always will be, I think.
Well, Matt, during our chat the other day, you were talking about how the Fox Sports Detroit people recognize what a great event this was going to be. And you said that it was a first-class production effort by your group, like you would if the Red Wings were in the Stanley Cup Finals, the Pistons were in the NBA Finals, and so forth. But you guys had a slew of talent out there, and obviously a lot of people behind the scenes. So tell us about how that all worked when you first heard about the game, and then you started having meetings about what we're going to do to present this game, even with, I think, a half-hour or hour pregame show.
Yeah, the thing that I've always been most proud of about our group is that we have – I think some people look at television and they think, well, there are A and B and C and D crews, and – you look at the NFL, boy, you'd love to have Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. If you don't get them, that means you're less than. Well, that's not the way it works, with back then Fox Sports Detroit, now Bally Sports. The same people who worked those high school state championships, the same ones who worked the CCHA when we carried those, the same ones who worked the Cold War and the Big Chill, those guys all worked Pistons games, Red Wings games, Tigers games. They are national guys. We did not go out and say, all right, how can we save some money doing this? That was never even discussed. They knew right away, we're putting our best people on this. And when you got 2 reporters like Shireen Sasky and Trevor Thompson, both hockey people, when you've got John Keating hosting the pregame and having Fred Pletch be part of it, and you have Billy Jaffe alongside us in the booth, I mean, that's a big deal. That's a really big deal. I'll tell you guys this. Look, Ken Daniels and Mickey Redmond were the guys who were going to call the game, okay?
Yeah.
But they were doing Red Wings out west. And Ken Daniels told me the story. He wanted to do the game desperately. He was like, is there any way we could set up a monitor so we could call the game? That's how much he wanted to call it, but he had his duties out west. I was fortunate enough to be able to, quote unquote, fill in. But it was I'll guarantee you. I mean, there was a part of him that was like, man, that is a place to be right now. and I wouldn't blame him. I would not blame him one bit, because if I were in his shoes, I would have felt the exact same way. That is not a knock by any stretch on calling a National Hockey League game, because I've done that too. It's just there are certain moments in sports when you see something happening, you're like, boy, I would love to be there. I said that earlier, Jack. I would have loved to have called a game last night like that in a wild card game. What announcer wouldn't want to call a Super Bowl? What announcer wouldn't want to call a national championship of any sort? We all would. The Cold War and the Big Chill both had those feelings for me.
Matt, I think I can speak for you and Neil, and for the three of us, we feel fortunate that we were able to be there and to see history made 20 years ago tonight. And who knows, maybe in a year or two, people will be talking about Comerica Park as that kind of a cool place as the Tigers begin to make another move toward the top in the American League. Matt, thanks so much for joining us.
I hope so. I hope that's the case, Jack. The thing about the Cold War and the Big Chill is I think those are once in sports or once in a lifetime moments.
Yeah.
You can try and duplicate that stuff. I mean, I think the NHL has tried to, and they've done a nice job of making it a cool event and making it great for certain teams. But I think I speak for all three of us. The feelings we had at those two games, especially the Cold War, I don't know how you duplicate that. I don't think you can. And that's what made it maybe as special as anything else. The fact that it was the first, and it was well done, and it was a great game. That's what I'll always remember about it.
Well, when we talk about firsts that are hard to duplicate, Neil, maybe that would be the Browns or the Lions in the Super Bowl, right?
That'd be a great.
That would be hard to duplicate. Matt, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon. Enjoy your time off.
Guys.
All right, take care.
Great to visit with you.
Bye, Matt.
Okay.
We'll be right back, and Neil and I are going to be reminiscing here for about the next 45 minutes, and we're going to talk with Brad Fast, Michigan State defenseman in that game, and now with the hockey program, and Jimmy Slater, Pride of Lapeer, and he got the tying goal right at the end. It looked like Michigan was going to get that 3-2 win. And for a lot of reasons that we'll talk about, it was so much better, I think 10-10 tie in 66, that there wasn't a winner in this game. We'll be right back on The Drive with Jack.
What makes Culver's Butterburger one of America's best-loved burgers? Our fresh, never-frozen beef is made from the highest quality cuts for richness and flavor. We press that beef into a very hot grill after you order, and that's how we get that nice caramelized edge. Then we lightly butter and toast the bun.
That's what makes it a Culver's Butterburger. Let us craft one for you today. Welcome to Delicious.
As families and communities across Michigan gear up for an historic back-to-school season, Dean Transportation is looking for compassionate people to join their dedicated team of school bus drivers. They offer competitive wages and paid training, quality benefits, flexible schedules, and most of all, endless opportunities to make a difference. Apply today at deanjobs.com to join this critical effort to help students return to learn this fall. deanjobs.com.
NBC News Radio, I'm Lisa Taylor. There's cell phone video of what led up to a North Texas high school shooting.
The video included the fight. I did not see a video that it captured the shooting.
Arlington Assistant Police Chief Kevin Colby says it was filmed this morning inside a Timberview High School classroom. He said a man believed to be Timothy Simpkins then pulled a gun and started shooting. At least 2 people were struck by bullets and 2 others hurt. The 18-year-old suspect then fled. Police say there's an active search for the shooter, who is a student and considered to be armed and dangerous.
The United States pays its bills. It's who we are, it's who we've been, it's who we're going to continue to be, God willing.
That's how President Biden opened a virtual White House meeting with business leaders. He again pushed the Senate to extend the debt limit to head off an economic catastrophe on October 18th. He argued that extending the debt limit is about paying old debts and has nothing to do with new spending. Biden said hikes or extensions of the debt limit usually prompt bipartisan support. Senate Republicans are refusing to support an extension. Lisa Taylor, NBC News Radio.
Jack Ebling here with Matt Sloan at Graf of Okemos. Matt, people buying cars different ways now with inventory changes.
They certainly are, Jack. It's a wild time, but we're still selling them. You might not see them on the lot, but they're still coming in every day, and we're still delivering them. So what we're finding is a lot of people, they come in and they actually place an order for the vehicle instead of finding one on the lot that they want. Then that comes in within 7-8 weeks, and they take delivery.
We'll still want that great Graff service. They're making friends.
Say you had the greatest job in the world, crafting pumpkin fresh frozen custard desserts at Culver's. Here would be your typical day. Pour farm fresh dairy into the custard maker and run continuously. Add real pumpkin puree and pumpkin pie spice. Then craft our pumpkin spice shake or salted caramel pumpkin concrete mixer.
Just like that, pumpkin's back at Culver's, but not for long. Welcome to Delicious.
It's the Red Sox moving on to the American League Division Series, beating the Yankees at Fenway Park 6-2 in the wild card game. Xander Bogaerts and Kyle Schwarber both homered off of Garrett Cole, and Nathan Eovaldi pitched shutout ball into the 6th inning. Bogaerts with a 2-run shot in the first.
This was definitely a really, really tough game, 1 and out. I never played in any game like this, but facing Garrett Cole at home and facing Garrett Cole at Fenway is it's much different.
The Red Sox will face the Rays starting tomorrow night. Later today, it's the Dodgers home for the Cardinals in the National League wild card game with Max Scherzer against Adam Wainwright. Clayton Kershaw expected to miss the entire postseason with an injury to his throwing arm. Max Muncy could return later on if LA advances as he deals with a dislocated elbow. The Nets' Kyrie Irving unable to practice with the team on Tuesday because of New York City's vaccination protocols. Irving is unvaccinated. The team is not sure of exactly how this will play out. That's sports. Frank Garrity, NBC News Radio.
You're listening to The Drive with Jack Ebling.
Just trying to grind through camp here. Good fundamentals, build our conditioning, just keep getting better every day.
SpotlightMediaStudios.com.
Welcome back. It is The Drive with Jack, the Spotlight Radio Network. All of our Wednesday shows brought to you by Graff of Okemos. Stop and see Matt, Mark, and Greg at West Grand River, and they will take great care of you, as I have on all 7 of my leases and purchases. I am here with Neil Koepke, my human hockey website on The Drive with Jack. Neil, I think you should do the introduction on Brad Fast.
Well, Brad Fast was a 4-year Spartan and played on some great teams around Mason and married a woman from the area.
I was going to say, really married well.
Yes, he did. Lindsay is a super, super person. And he stayed in town, and he's had some various jobs, including director of operations and video coach at Michigan State. Now he's involved with player development in a business with Tom Anastas in Farmington. So we welcome in former Spartan Brad Fast.
Hey, Brad.
Thanks for having me, guys.
How are you?
I'm great, guys. How are you?
How does it feel to be out of college hockey now and in the new role?
Well, it's very different. I tried to get out of hockey completely, and that didn't go over very well. I just found myself trying to find ways to get back in. So while I'm not in college hockey, I'm definitely following it and very excited for the start of the season this weekend.
And if you ever have a question about something that's going on at MUN, you can usually get that answered at the dinner table.
You bet. You bet. Very lucky to, like you said, I'm definitely married up. My wife, Lindsay, and she's working for the hockey team and keeps me in the loop on everything Spartan hockey.
Brad, can you tell us what you're just doing now, the nature of your job in Farmington with Tom Anastas' new operation?
Yeah, we've got took a role with him, and specifically I'm the director of athlete development for Honey Baked Hockey. We're building a new facility down there that's just left the facility right now, should be opening up soon. But really, I'm in charge of anything involved with the athletes, making sure they have exactly what they need to succeed at the highest level.
Brad, we're spending a lot of time today reminiscing about 2 decades ago. And can you tell us what you thought of the game before it was played, and as you look back now, what do you think its importance was?
Oh my goodness! Before it was played, we just couldn't wrap our heads around it. It was, I mean, thinking back to what we would have said back then, man, this is so cool that we're doing this, and we were really excited. Nobody knew the impact that it would have on the game down the road. I mean, I believe that I was reading an article that Neil wrote today where over 100 games have been played in North America like this since. It's amazing. The impact, you see it every year right around New Year's, around New Year's in the NHL, where they've got the outdoor classics, and just the impact that it's had worldwide. I actually I was my team. I couldn't play because of injury. My team over in Switzerland, we played in a soccer stadium in, I think it was about 2007 or 8. So the impact that it's had is not just in North America, but everywhere.
Brad, when you look at the game itself and what it was like when you guys skated on the ice for the first time, what was it like from the standpoint of the wind? I'm talking about the game now, the game day, the wind, and just the build-up to like the first face-off and all the little things that were going around with Gordie Howe dropping the puck, and there was other things going on. So what was that like in terms of just getting yourself set to play a game, but also taking in the environment and what a spectacle it was?
Well, even with so much going on, I just remember being ultra focused on the task at hand. I know that there were so many people on campus that day. It was the perfect day for an outdoor game, yet I don't remember participating or checking out anything with that. We were so focused on playing our rivals. On the ice, I remember even in pregame skate earlier that day, flipping pucks up into the air and just trying to get a feel for it and the different viewpoints, and the wind was pretty good. Some pucks started making their way back towards us as we flipped them in the air. But once that puck dropped to start the game, it was all hockey. The atmosphere did make for an incredible event. The fans were louder than I had ever heard before. It was so cool, so fantastic.
Brad, over the years, when you would run into players from other teams and time went by, how much were they envious of the fact that you were out there and you had a key role in the game?
Yeah, people from all walks of life, when they ask about where I played, and then they start putting two and two together, wondering, well, were you part of that game? People that I would have never thought had any real interest in hockey remember that game like it was yesterday, and think it was so amazing that we could put that on, and that it was the first of its kind. So it was, people from all over the place come up, whether I was playing in Europe or even in Asia. They know that game. It made such an impact everywhere.
Brad, you had 2 assists in the game itself, including an assist on the winning goal. And I talked to Jim Slater about it, got his memories. The tying goal. Yeah, it felt like the winning goal, but it was really the tying goal. And it should have been the winning. But what was your take on just how that play developed and your role in it?
Well, we had the goalie pulled. We were pushing hard to try and tie that game up, and I remember their captain had the puck heading out of the zone, and I mean, if he got out of the zone, it was going to be an odd man rush. We had so much pressure down low; it was going to be an odd man rush, and without a goalie in the net, it wasn't going to look too good for us. So I made a play like I was going back to play that odd man rush, and at the last second, I stepped forward and protected the blue line. Luckily, he put it right somewhere where I could grab it, kept it in the zone, and kept the play alive. A few seconds later, Jim Slater put it in the back of the net, and the place went crazy.
When you kept it in, did you fire the puck on goal? Because I know Adam Hall had an assist on the 2, so maybe he touched it before Slater did, obviously.
You know, I'll have to watch that back. I don't actually remember where that puck went. I probably fired it off Adam's shin pads or something, and then he made a nice play and put it over to Jimmy.
Brad, I want to ask you, having been in coaching too, how Ron Mason was different with that game, either before or after. Do you think he realized that this was something that people would be talking about for decades?
Well, he was always so in the moment. He was so in tune and so in touch with how things were going that he always treated everything special. Yet he didn't have us nervous. He didn't have us amped up too much to play. I know that we had the option the night before to skate in the rain or skate in mud. And I think that he, obviously knowing the magnitude, he encouraged us to want to skate outside, take advantage of that. And really, like, just what I remember from him, it was no different than any other game he coached. He had us so prepared. He had us knowing ourselves and the other team better than anybody. So that was no different. Being the first game of the season, we knew exactly what we had to do, exactly who we were, and exactly who the other team was, how we had to play to have success.
Neil, didn't Michigan practice in Munn?
They did.
They did not practice.
No, they didn't want to get wet, and so Red took them inside Munn for their practice on Friday night.
Well, a lot of Michigan guys don't want to get wet.
But not tough enough, right?
Yeah, something to it. How often have you talked to Slater about that play, or how often have you gone back and watched it, or not even really planned to watch it, but just seen it?
You know, it was probably, last time I've seen it was probably about 8 years ago. It was being replayed on TV. Somebody called me up, and I did catch the last, probably the last period and a half of the game. It was really nice. We were given some copies of the game afterwards, and I still have that. And you know what? I should definitely put it on. I've shown my children the clips, a couple clips of the game, so they understand that it was Michigan State, not anybody else, that started this whole wave of outdoor games. And just to show them the capacity that you can fit in Spartan Stadium for a hockey game. They were just in awe of it.
Neil, do you remember the 3-star selection for that game? Camilleri had a couple of goals.
There were two MVPs of that. And Camilleri is one of them, and Jim Slater was the Spartan pick.
Okay, so they didn't have a traditional...
No, they didn't have the 3-star.
Well, we've just named the 3rd star now with 2 assists and that big play of keeping the puck in. We're talking to him.
That's right. He made the play.
Okay.
Like I said, if that puck goes behind him, Camilleri's probably zooming down there going to stuff this puck, and a 4-2 loss coming up, and obviously that would have changed the complexion of people walking out of there. So it was very obviously important, and Slater points that out, that was the unbelievable play that Brad made to keep the puck in and to keep the play going, and bingo, that's how inches this game is.
Neil, would you say that other than the 3 national championship wins, 66, 86, and 2007, that this would be the 4th most important hockey game Michigan State played?
Yeah, I would say so. Sure, very much so. You know, there were some other ones there where they get to the Frozen Four or to actually get to the finals, but certainly the spectacle, everything surrounded, it's one of the greatest events in Michigan State history. So obviously the Spartans hockey program would have to say it's one of their top 1, 2, or 3, or 4 also.
And Brad, looking back as a career achievement, obviously everyone dreams of winning a national championship, but the idea of getting to a Frozen Four, playing in a championship game, would you rather have played the Cold War game and have it be such a history-setting event?
Well, that's a tough one to answer, because I mean, you're playing for a national championship, and I mean, we came really close. We had some excellent teams, but I thought we had the best teams at least 2 out of my 4 years there, and I would have loved to have won that, won a national championship. However, playing in such an important game for college hockey, that also, I mean, you can't not take that off either. That's such an important game, not just in Michigan State history, but in college hockey history. Really, I mean, if you look at it from a national point of view, we were on television everywhere. I had friends back home in Canada who never got to watch college hockey, hardly ever, and this was definitely something that they still remember as well.
And Neil, I heard a couple of players say that the ice, after being such a concern, turned out to be one of the best surfaces they ever skated on.
Yeah, I mean, it was stunning because of the fact everybody was worried about what the ice was going to do with the melting, then the rain, and the cold temperatures and the rain just made it almost perfect, and that's what the players said after that game.
The only thing that would have made it more perfect would have been Michigan State had scored one more goal, right, Brad?
Yeah, that's right. See those pyrotechnics go off one more time.
And, you know, David McAuliffe talks about how that from his standpoint, he saw in the overtime a face-off play where Adam Hall had sort of a wide-open net, empty net in the left corner, and he shot it towards it, and it just went wide by inches. And of course, being the competitor Dave McAuliffe was, he was just like, boy, if we could have just won that game. Can you imagine the explosion from the crowd?
Oh my goodness, I know that was such a close chance, and I mean that crowd I said was loud to begin with. I couldn't imagine what would have happened if that would have went in.
Well, you see a big football game where people flood the field, right? Or basketball, they storm the court, and they had lowered the playing surface by that point. But I wonder if people would have jumped over and tried to get on the ice if Michigan State had done that. That would have been wild if suddenly 20,000 students are trying to join you on the ice.
That would have been.
Yeah. Brad, thanks so much for being with us. Really appreciate you taking the time to reminisce about an unforgettable night in East Lansing.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Brad Fast, standout defenseman on that team.
Yes, he was. Him and John Michael Lyles were two of the best defensemen the Spartans have ever had. John Michael, more of an offensive threat, and Brad, more of the stay-at-home.
And you said 12 players from those teams played in the National Hockey League.
7 from Michigan State, 5 from Michigan. And in Fast's case, Brad Fast has the distinction of playing in one game for the Carolina Hurricanes and scoring a goal.
Can't be any better than that, right? His goals per game. Pretty good.
That's right.
We'll be right back, and we're going to talk with the hero of a tie, and that is Jim Slater, Michigan State forward. And we'll be right back with that and much, much more coming up on The Drive with Jack.
What makes Culver's Butterburger one of America's best-loved burgers? Our fresh, never-frozen beef is made from the highest quality cuts for richness and flavor. We press that beef into a very hot grill after you order, and that's how we get that nice caramelized edge. Then we lightly butter and toast the bun.
That's what makes it a Culver's Butterburger. Let us craft one for you today. Welcome to Delicious.
As families and communities across Michigan gear up for an historic back-to-school season, Dean Transportation is looking for compassionate people to join their dedicated team of school bus drivers. They offer competitive wages and paid training, quality benefits, flexible schedules, and most of all, endless opportunities to make a difference. Apply today at deanjobs.com to join this critical effort to help students return to learn this fall. deanjobs.com.
Amazon is making it even easier to send a gift. If a Prime member wants to surprise a recipient with a present but doesn't know the recipient's mailing address, in the Amazon app, they can select the Add Gift Receipt for Easy Returns options during checkout, and will see an option to let the recipient provide their address. The giver then adds the receipt's email address or mobile number. The recipient then gets a notice via text or email that there's a present from a gift giver waiting. The recipient can click on the notice to reveal what the gift giver sent. Then they can decline it, accept the gift, but convert it into an Amazon gift card. The gift giver won't be notified, or just accept the gift. If the recipient accepts the gift, the giver's payment card is charged. Apple will now let you directly report a scammy app from its listing in the App Store with a new and improved version of its Report a Problem button. Netflix is out with a new Play Something Shuffle Mode option for Android users that will play another movie or show Netflix believes you may like based on your interests and your prior viewing behavior. Tech Report, Larry Olson, NBC News Radio.
Jack Ebling here with Matt Sloan at Graph of Okemos. Matt, people buying cars different ways now with inventory changes.
They certainly are, Jack. It's a wild time, but we're still selling them. You might not see them on the lot, but they're still coming in every day, and we're still delivering them. So what we're finding is a lot of people, they come in and they actually place an order for the vehicle instead of finding one on the lot that they want. Then that comes in within 7-8 weeks, and they take delivery.
We'll still want that great Graph service. They're making friends.
Say you had the greatest job in the world, crafting pumpkin fresh frozen custard desserts at Culver's. Here would be your typical day. Pour farm fresh dairy into the custard maker and run continuously. Add real pumpkin puree and pumpkin pie spice. Then craft our pumpkin spice shake or salted caramel pumpkin concrete mixer.
Just like that, pumpkin's back at Culver's, but not for long. Welcome to Delicious.
It's the Red Sox moving on to the American League Division Series, beating the Yankees at Fenway Park 6-2 in the wild card game. Xander Bogaerts and Kyle Schwarber both homered off of Garrett Cole, and Nathan Eovaldi pitched shutout ball into the sixth inning. Bogaerts with a 2-run shot in the first.
This was definitely a really, really tough game, 1-out. I never played in any game like this, but facing Garrett Cole at home and facing Garrett Cole at Fenway is it's much different.
The Red Sox will face the Rays starting tomorrow night. Later today, it's the Dodgers home for the Cardinals in the National League wild card game with Max Scherzer against Adam Wainwright. Clayton Kershaw expected to miss the entire postseason with an injury to his throwing arm. Max Muncy could return later on if LA advances as he deals with a dislocated elbow. The Nets' Kyrie Irving unable to practice with the team on Tuesday because of New York City's vaccination protocols. Irving is unvaccinated. The team is not sure of exactly how this will play out. That's sports. Frank Garrity, NBC News Radio.
You're listening to The Drive with Jack Ebling.
So for all the doubters out there, stuff it!
SpotlightMediaStudios.com.
Welcome back. It is The Drive with Jack, the Spotlight Radio Network. Jack Ebling here with my co-host for a very special part of the show, a 20-year retrospective on the Cold War, 3-3 tie between Michigan and Michigan State. Neil, I taught and coached for 3 years in Lapeer West High School when the school split. And very happy to welcome in another Lapeer product and a guy who will forever be remembered as the guy who had the key goal, the tying goal at the end of the 3-3 tie. October 6th, 2001, Jim Slater joins us. Jim, how are you?
I'm good, Jack. And, man, we got to add you to this wonderful list of athletes and somewhat celebrities that come out of Lapeer, Michigan. I mean, we have the number one overall draft pick, Jake Long.
Yes.
We have myself. We have Miss Michigan, 2006. We have a Powerball lottery winner for $375 million. A couple MLB players, and now we have a few NFL players, the Rasmussen brothers, and now can add you onto the list. I didn't know you were coaching Lapeer.
Yeah, I did that for 3 years, and finally they decided they didn't want me anymore. No, they laid off all the teachers, Jim, up to 7 years. Anyone who didn't have that much seniority because they had a millage failure, and they built the second school, and they couldn't staff it. So it was a crazy time in Lapeer.
Hey, Jim, is there a Lapeer Hall of Fame that all these people could get into? We could, I could be the master of ceremonies, and we could just ignite you all in there.
It would be great. The crazy thing is, you drive into Lapeer, and who's ever been in Lapeer, you take the exit from 69 to get onto 24, and I always call it the Vegas Strip of fast food joints because you come over the hill, and it's nothing but neon lights of fast food, but you come into the town, and there's one sign, right below Lapeer city limits, and it says the home of Miss Michigan 2006, Danelle Gay. But there's been so many other, like I said, just great athletes that have come out of Lapeer, and it's really a good spot to look up, I guess, if you will, because there's been many athletes that come out of there.
I think we have to take Neil to Lake Nipissing and just let him see what this town is really like, Jim.
Exactly, I'm ready.
We'll do all that.
The Lake Inn BLT pizza. That's my recommendation if you go out there.
Good. We'll always have someplace to eat.
Right.
All right, I want to talk about the game and started off and. Nobody knew quite what to make of it, but here we are 20 years later still talking about it. Did you know, heading into it, how momentous it would be?
For sure. I mean, I was recruited there and, signed there after my junior year of high school and coming in, there was definitely talks about it. And then, my senior year of high school, the word got out that it was going to happen. And, coming in freshman year, it was going to be your first college game. It was just a great thing to start your college career. And to be honest with you, I mean, it was definitely a highlight of my whole playing career, not just in college, but my whole playing career, after college is definitely a top 3 thing to ever happen.
Hard to imagine, Neil, someone debuting any better
ever.
than that. How do you top that?
Yeah.
Well, it was pretty crazy because I missed our exhibition game. We played a Canadian university. I believe it was Western Ontario or something. And I missed it because I had a groin problem, and didn't know if I was going to be able to play in the Cold War, actually. And it kind of came right up to the last, I'd say 3 or 4 days. And, with the great athletic training staff we had there with Dave Carrier and Dr. Jennifer Gilmore, and then they got me ready and was able to, finally be able to practice with the team there for the couple days before. Was able to get in the lineup, but it was definitely up to that last little bit, wondering if I was going to even be able to play in it or not, to be honest with you. So,
Jimmy, what was it like skating in the rain the Friday before, the day before, and getting drenched and trying to figure out whether the ice was good, how you're going to play this game? And Brad Fast was saying that they were flipping pucks up in the air on the morning skate just to see how the wind was.
Yeah, no, you're definitely trying. I mean, we were really the first ones to do it, right? I mean, you as hockey players, though, you grow up on ponds, and you skate on ponds, and you know the elements a little bit, but to actually play a real game with boards and the fans and everything, we were really the first ones to do it, and didn't really have any inkling of what to expect, and we were just trying to get out there and, like you said, just try to figure out what was the best way to do things. I know guys had eye black on, and guys were wearing hats on their helmets, and just little things here and there. But yeah, definitely the rain the day before. Didn't know if the game was going to get off, but fortunate it did. And then as the game, as the build up to the game was, and the puck drop, the wind was a factor. And like I said, if you had one hand on your stick, it'd blow your stick away, or on ice, you get some of the snow that gets after shifts and periods of play, and that would start blowing around in your eyes and all that. So it was definitely a different feel to a hockey game. But I've always said, like, after about the first 5 minutes for everybody, and it's cliche and everything, you just kind of settled in and knew you had to play a hockey game, and that's what it really kind of came down to in the end there. And the first 5 minutes was great. Everyone was into it and all that, but we definitely settled down after that, and were able to just play a hockey game.
So, Jimmy, everybody talks about your tying goal, but you scored your first college point 3 minutes and 35 seconds into the game with an assist to a goal by Adam Hall on a power play. Do you remember that point?
Yeah, I sure do. I remember my first shift, and I was like, this is college hockey, because it was going so fast and guys were so strong and big. I feel like I couldn't move out there. And then it had to be about our second shift. I kind of was coming down the left wing and had a step on one of the defenders in Michigan, and was able to center it to Adam Hall, who you knew was always going to be towards the net and in front of the net, and he was able to chip it up and over the goalie there for Michigan, and got us off to a good start for sure.
Now, Michigan has taken a 3-2 lead, Jim, and clock is ticking down, and things not looking so good. And I guess Brad Fast kept the puck in the zone, and next thing you know, it's on your stick. When did you know the importance of that goal? And, of course, you still have chances to get another one, but when did you realize that you got a goal that people would be talking about forever?
You know what? Honestly, during the game, not no clue that it would, still be talked about. 20 years later. As like you said, it just kind of happened. Brad made a great play at the blue line to pinch and keep the puck in. If that gets out, we probably end up losing the game 3-2. But he makes a great play there. Was able to keep it in. Rebound kind of came right to me, and was able to get it up quick and high, because the goalie was kind of down on the ice, sprawled, and I knew I had to get it off quick and high. And after that, it was just ecstatic that we tied the game, right? I mean, we were number 1 in the country at the time. Michigan, I believe, was number 4. So you had 2 top 5 teams. It's your number 1 rival, playing, and I was just ecstatic that we tied the game and had a chance to now win it. So that was really what was in the back of my mind. I'll tell you when I knew it was big was after the game was over, go back to the dorm room. We didn't have cell phones back then, and check our voicemail on our dorm room. Duncan Keith and I were rooming together, and there must have been 100 messages from students on our phone just saying, great game, like, oh my God, unbelievable. And I think that's probably the time that you realized it was a big goal.
Probably a lot of female students, Neil, that Jim didn't know. Hello, Jim.
50% probably, yeah.
And you'd only been on campus for about a month and a half or so.
Yeah, no, I know. It was, obviously then, as college kids do, you go out and enjoy the night, and everyone's talking about it around campus. And like I said, 20 years now, it's still being talked about. You guys are doing a radio show on it. It's who could have ever have thought that it would have taken off like this, for sure.
Jim, we have former Michigan State football player T.J. Harrell with us, and he was on the field for the perfect 10 play that beat Michigan with the botched punt in 2015. But I think back to so many football players, Neil, who would have loved to be out there in that setting. TJ's nodding. Yeah. I think about Kirk Gibson. I've talked to him because he's a hockey guy.
Yeah,
right?
yes.
And, as many passes as he caught in Spartan Stadium, I think he would rather have gone into the corner and, given somebody a face wash.
And knock some Wolverines around. That would have been a great pleasure for him.
Yeah. So what did the other athletes say to you, and how did it elevate hockey in general on campus and in the MSU community?
Well, hockey's always been big here at Michigan State. We've had an unbelievable amount of support. Yeah. Wonderful alumni that have come through here and gone on to bigger and better things. And we've had a great, Michigan State hockey. It goes hand in hand with all the other sports.
Right.
And, that was one of the main reasons why I wanted to sign at Michigan State. I mean, we, had Ron Mason, winningest coach in college hockey history. I mean, that year I think we hit 347 consecutive sellouts, in college hockey, number 1 in the country. So, that game to be nationally broadcast, in the situation it was, you had NHL brass watching it and players and all that. And I think even Wayne Gretzky even mentioned something that he watched the whole game. So, I think not just Michigan State, but college hockey in general, because back then, I mean, college hockey was big. It's obviously grown a ton over the last 20 years, but, we didn't have much TV coverage. Didn't have the social media coverage, and to be nationally televised college hockey game, it definitely was huge for the sport and for the university. But the players I think just knowing that you were a hockey player, you were definitely proud to wear your sweatshirts around and around campus like you always are. You always got the Michigan State hockey stuff on, and the fellow student athletes are always supportive of other sports. We'd go and cheer on volleyball and football and basketball and field hockey, and they would do the same for us. So it was always a big community, and that was some of the most special times about being a Spartan, was just being with the other athletes and being fans of their sports and having them be fans of yours.
Neil, do you think there was ever another college hockey game that Wayne Gretzky talked about and Gordie Howe dropped the puck?
Exactly. Probably not. And Jimmy, to your point about how it went worldwide, in the country, with 74,500 fans there, that opened up a lot of eyes. Like, you can get that many fans, parents, fans, everybody around the state of Michigan to come to that game And that obviously ignited the colleges to say, hey, this is a way to explore and expand our sport, promote it. And then suddenly Wisconsin, Boston, everybody was just doing outdoor games on the college level.
Yeah. You think about a crowd like that, and Jim, I don't know what the largest crowd you played before other than that game. Did you play before more than 22,000?
Before that game? No.
No, I mean after that game or any time other than that game.
Yeah, no, I mean, Montreal is probably the biggest at like 21, 22,000. So, yeah, I mean, there's no comparison, whatsoever to it. For me, obviously the NHL has done a great job of putting these outdoor games on now, and it is really cool to keep saying that. We here at Michigan State and myself and others included played in the first one.
Do you ever walk by your TV on January 1st watching an outdoor game and you look up and you see the ice and go, hey, I played one of those games and I scored a big goal?
I would say I do that, but I definitely am. I definitely feel what the players are and whatever they're saying, to the media before the game and after the game, and how incredible it was to be a part of one. I definitely know what they're talking about, and it's kind of cool to have that same feeling, that same emotion that those guys still have, because it's one of those things that doesn't leave me. Like I keep saying, it's I've had a lot of great memories in my hockey career, and that's definitely a top 3 for me.
Neil, what happens? What are we talking about if Jim Slater had shot wide on the last goal,
or the goalie
hit the crossbar,
or hit the crossbar? Yeah. A lot of things would have changed.
Well,
right?
He'd be noted for. You remember when Jim Slater hit the crossbar that would have given the tie? And those dang Wolverines skated off the ice happy and celebrating. So the Spartan fans.
I would have blamed the elements then, right? The wind,
the
bad ice. Yeah. No. I guess. Yeah. You don't think of that, right? I mean, in hindsight, yeah, it could have happened, but fortunate that it didn't.
How was Ron Mason after that game? Was he relieved it got a tie? Was he pissed off that you didn't get the win? We know how competitive he was. I mean, I've seen him in some non-hockey environments, and he'd fight you for a nickel.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering how he was after that.
Yeah, I don't want to just make up stories. I can't remember. I know going into overtime, we had all the momentum. We played a great overtime. We might have even had a real good chance to win it in overtime there. But I don't want to speak for him. Myself coming in the locker room, it was, to be honest with you, we were probably fortunate to tie the game. With a goalie pulled and all that, it doesn't happen very often. And then to give yourself a chance to win, and you come in the locker room and you just kind of know what just happened there. But anytime you play Michigan, you want to beat them. So I know all the guys in the locker room were definitely disappointed that we weren't able to get the win, especially on home ice in front of that amount of fans.
Well, it's certainly something that anyone who was there will never forget, and we're talking about it a lot this week. And on the 20th anniversary, we thought it was important we have you. Jim, thanks so much for joining us, and good luck to you down the road.
I appreciate it, Jack. And like I said, once a Spartan, always a Spartan. And I'll tell you how much 20 years has changed. Was it 5:30 now? It's probably getting in the rink, doing some exercises, getting ready to go on the ice. Now I'm cooking dinner for my wife and 2 kids. So time has definitely changed over 20 years, but still a memory that we'll never forget. So
the kids are going to be hockey players? Do they have that? I know the genes are there, but you're working with them on wrist shots and handling the puck?
Of course, yeah. We, being an alumni here at Michigan State, you're treated super well, and still able to go over to Munn Ice and get on the ice with the kids at any time. So we're over there as much as we can be, and they love it, and try to go as many games as we can. So it's a fun time to be a dad, and looking forward to this season for Spartan hockey and seeing what they're able to accomplish. So it'll be a fun year.
Neil, that idea about having a reunion game, right? We talked about that last night.
Yeah, all the players
that played in it. All the players come back, and some
as
of them
part of an outdoor game with 2 colleges. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that might be wild. I don't know how many people would wind up in traction, but it'd be kind of Kind of
Jimmy
fun to
be
see.
ready for a couple of years, and I imagine Camilleri probably is still in good
Duncan
shape. So
would be ready to play, right?
Duncan will still be playing probably. He'd have to take some time off from Edmonton.
have to get excused absence here from Edmonton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you think of the players that played in that game and went on. It was it's pretty crazy. Two great hockey schools, and hey, we're always up for an alumni game and wherever that may be.
We'll be right back. It's the Drive with Jack, the Spotlight Radio Network.
What makes Culver's Butterburger one of America's best-loved burgers? Our fresh, never-frozen beef is made from the highest quality cuts for richness and flavor. We press that beef into a very hot grill after you order, and that's how we get that nice caramelized edge. Then we lightly butter and toast the bun.
That's what makes it a Culver's Butterburger. Let us craft one for you today. Welcome to Delicious.
As families and communities across Michigan gear up for an historic back-to-school season, Dean Transportation is looking for compassionate people to join their dedicated team of school bus drivers. They offer competitive wages and paid training, quality benefits, flexible schedules, and most of all, endless opportunities to make a difference. Apply today at deanjobs.com to join this critical effort to help students return to learn this fall. deanjobs.com.
NBC News Radio, I'm Mark Mayfield. President Biden says changing Senate filibuster rules to raise the debt ceiling is a real possibility. He admits he can't guarantee action will happen in 2 weeks when the government goes into default. The move would be aimed at Republicans who refuse to vote. Microsoft is launching its first major update to Windows in 6 years. Brian Shook reports.
Starting now, Windows 11 is available to download for free for existing Windows users. The new update will give users more flexibility with multitasking tools along with support for Android mobile apps in its new App Store. The phased rollout will continue through the middle of 2022. I'm Brian Shook.
And there's new information about the massive oil spill off the coast of California. Regulators say it took more than 3 hours to shut down a pipeline after an alarm went off. The energy company that owns it allegedly waited another 3 hours to report the spill. Mark Mayfield, NBC News Radio.
Jack Ebling here with Matt Sloan at Graf of Okemos. Matt, people buying cars different ways now with inventory changes.
They certainly are, Jack. It's a wild time, but we're still selling them. You might not see them on the lot, but they're still coming in every day, and we're still delivering them. So what we're finding is a lot of people, they come in and they actually place an order for the vehicle instead of finding one on the lot that they want. Then that comes in within 7-8 weeks, and they take delivery.
We'll still want that great Graf service. They're making friends.
Say you had the greatest job in the world, crafting pumpkin fresh frozen custard desserts at Culver's. Here would be your typical day. Pour farm fresh dairy into the custard maker and run continuously. Add real pumpkin puree and pumpkin pie spice. Then craft our pumpkin spice shake or salted caramel pumpkin concrete mixer.
Just like that, pumpkin's back at Culver's, but not for long. Welcome to Delicious.
It's the Red Sox moving on to the American League Division Series, beating the Yankees at Fenway Park 6-2 in the wild card game. Xander Bogaerts and Kyle Schwarber both homered off of Garrett Cole, and Nathan Eovaldi pitched shutout ball into the 6th inning. Bogaerts with a 2-run shot in the first.
This was definitely a really, really tough game, 1 and out. I never played in any game like this, but facing Garrett Cole at home and facing Garrett Cole at Fenway is it's much different.
The Red Sox will face the Rays starting tomorrow night. Later today, it's the Dodgers home for the Cardinals in the National League wild card game with Max Scherzer against Adam Wainwright. Clayton Kershaw expected to miss the entire postseason with an injury to his throwing arm. Max Muncy could return later on if LA advances as he deals with a dislocated elbow. The Nets' Kyrie Irving unable to practice with the team on Tuesday because of New York City's vaccination protocols. Irving is unvaccinated. The team is not sure of exactly how this will play out. That's sports. Frank Garrity, NBC News Radio.
You're listening to The Drive with Jack Ebling.
When I pick those balls out, I don't want anyone rubbing them. To me, they're perfect.
SpotlightMediaStudios.com.
Welcome back. It is The Drive with Jack, the Spotlight Radio Network. All of our Wednesday shows brought to you by Graf of Okemos. Graf Chevrolet and Graf Nissan side by side on West Grand River. Want to go right back to our guest line and the guy who has heard that intro a time or two, Alex. He was a former lead intern here for this show. Outstanding researcher, as good as we've had. He was a baby Bob Trippy. And he was also the sports editor for the State News, contributor to the Free Press, now out in Las Vegas, working for Westgate Casino, and probably drowning in his sorrows right now because his beloved New York Yankees are done. They lost the wild card game last night to the Boston Red Sox. Heading into the game, how nervous were you, Chase? And optimistic, pessimistic? What did you think?
I was cautiously optimistic, which turns out. You know, what's funny, Jack, is that everybody around me who doesn't care about the Yankees, including you, were telling me, the Yankees have got this in the bag. There's nothing to worry about.
Yeah. Well, they were big favorites, right? I mean, what was the line in Vegas?
It moved, but I think it got up to minus 135.
Yeah.
What's interesting, Jack, is that the last two times the Yankees have been eliminated from the playoffs. So in 2019, my father and I were leaving Beaver Stadium after watching Michigan and Penn State play, and we listened to Altuve's walk-off home run on the radio. Then we drove in silence for 40 minutes back to our hotel. And last year, when the Yankees were eliminated by Tampa, I went on a solemn drive through my hometown in Seattle and was just very sad. That was not the case last night. I wasn't sad. I'm a mixture of relieved. I don't have to watch the team play baseball anymore. And upset. Not sad, like just angry.
Yeah.
Because I just feel like certain things are preventable.
Who or what are you most angry at?
I mean, besides God? No. So the thing with the Yankees, and I wonder if people in Mid-Michigan want to hear this because they say, well, this is ridiculous, you're a spoiled Yankee fan, like they don't want to hear it, or they enjoy the tears. It's probably a mixture.
Yeah. It's Schadenfreude. I think they're enjoying some of the suffering.
Right, for sure. There's an organizational philosophy where the Yankees really don't try during the regular season that hard because they want to protect their pitchers and things like that. And so, and it results in things like being swept by a not great Tigers team, right? Because they call up pitchers from AAA and they use Justin Wilson in the 10th inning with a lead and things like that. Because no individual game is considered important. And because of that, you have a situation where a team that was more talented than their 90 wins would indicate only won 90 games and lost the season series to Boston, so they had to play last night in Fenway Park instead of Yankee Stadium. Now, of course, everything's different, and I'm not saying, they would have won Yankee Stadium, but it would have helped, right? Giancarlo Stanton hit the hell out of the ball twice and was rewarded with 2 singles.
Yes. He did later get a home run around the pesky pole, ninth inning,
right. Well, I think that probably would have been gone in Yankee Stadium too. Maybe not. I guess it was really far, where it's actually better in Fenway. But obviously that's sort of not point is an individual home run or not, or single or whatever. But the insistence on, well, this game doesn't matter. And we've talked about this before, Jack. I like the analytics. I think they're good. And I think that teams that rely on it at this point, like, I do think it's in general a good thing.
Yeah.
However, it doesn't mean that everything is the end all be all. And like the refusal to take extra bases, the refusal to think about base running or defense as an important part of the game because it's not as important as offense. Like teams that they're just a very slow, plodding team. And they go station to station, and they just hope they're going to hit a home run.
Yeah.
Which works a lot, obviously, when you hit home runs, but you're not always going to hit a home run.
Right.
And there has to be a plan B, and there wasn't last night, and there isn't on an organizational level. So I don't know. Aaron Boone's contract is up, and I don't think it will be renewed. It may or may not be, but I don't honestly think it matters, which is the sad part.
Wow.
Because I don't. Because whoever comes in will be like Aaron Boone and the Queen of England are very similar figures in that they are ceremonial and they are the public face of their nation. But the power is on Downing Street. It's not in the castle.
Right.
And that also, and the power for the New York Yankees is not in the dugout. It's not in the owner's box anymore, obviously. With the Steinbrenner brother, I guess, well, it's just Hal.
Yeah,
he passed away, but it's much more hands off than George ever was. But Brian Cashman is the most powerful person for the most powerful sports franchise in North America.
Yeah,
and so he and the analytics team that he relies on make the decisions, and then Aaron Boone fills out a lineup card.
So when do people start to question maybe the job security, maybe they are, of Brian Cashman? It's been a while.
People are, although, like I said, I would be very surprised if Brian Cashman was fired because the Steinbrenners have backed up. They've allowed him to do his thing, which overall I think is a good thing. Like I think that George probably, a little bit over-meddled. I don't think that's a controversial take.
Just a little.
We saw Bucky Dent on the screen a couple of times yesterday, and he had some great moments at Fenway. He also got fired at Fenway 20 games into the season because George got upset one time. Which is kind of how things work. I don't think that anything's going to happen on that organizational level, which is frustrating. I don't necessarily think that Brian Cashman deserves to lose his job or whatever, because he's obviously built a team and they found some guys and that have built a team that does win a lot of games every year. So it's not that necessarily that I think Brian Cashman deserves to be fired, as much as it is that the organizational philosophy, I think they have to do a better job of marrying the old school, we're the New York Yankees, this is how we do things, we just roll the ball out and mash, and the modern analytics. I think that it can be done where you like this idea that it's a binary thing where you either stick your head in the sand and you say, no, we're just gonna, we don't care, and we're gonna steal on every single time we get to first base because we want to be the whitey ball Cardinals of the 80s. There is a middle ground. You can do both. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And I think that you see teams do that, like Tampa Bay again with that. I mean, they're the ultimate money ball in terms of their payroll compared to how well they play. But obviously, it can be done on a big market. Los Angeles Dodgers. And I imagine that they have a robust analytics. They also steal bases. You know what I'm saying? So it's not just one or the other.
Well, and that's why when the Yankees got Joey Gallo late in the year, and you can think about Anthony Rizzo, and he does have a lot of baseball skills, but I'm thinking about this, and what he batted 199 and struck out over 200 times, and I can't think of a team that needed him less.
It's tough. It's the Gallo thing, and it's Rizzo's out of contract. Gallo's not, so Gallo will be there next season as well. I don't want to pile on Joey Gallo because I don't know if it's necessarily his fault as much as it is he's sort of representative of a larger problem.
Yeah.
With the Yankees, which obviously is like we're saying, is a maniacal devotion to the launch angle that sort of doesn't account for the fact that baseball's a weird sport, and like baseball's in basketball, the three-point line is always the same distance. So, like, just having Steph Curry shoot threes is always a good strategy. It doesn't matter where you're playing.
Right.
But ballparks are different, and weather is different, and there's a whole bunch of things that go into playing postseason baseball that make it really different from regular season baseball. And when you treat the regular season like it's the preseason, which the Yankees do, and then you get in a situation last night where your ace doesn't have it, and look, I don't want to pile on Gary Cole up too much. I think there's probably some hamstring problems. He didn't throw his curveball at all, which is weird.
Yeah.
Whatever. He was bad. Okay, fine. But he
has a whiplash issue, too, because his neck kept spinning around when those balls landed in the seats last night.
I'm happy for you that you guys made that joke. He was whatever, but there was no plan after that made any sense. You had guys pitching more than they're accustomed to that looked tired in their second inning of work because they weren't stretched out for that at all. And so that resulted in a bunch of walks. And then, like, the Yankees walked 0 times last night. I don't know exactly how many times the Red Sox walked, but I know that a lot of their guys that walked scored.
Right.
And so part of that, like I said, is these guys aren't stretched out because they aren't used in the regular season. There's no urgency in the regular season. So when there is urgency and you know, okay, we're going to all hands on deck, we're going to use these guys for this block or whatever, those guys aren't used to it.
Well, it's not the first time the Yankees have had a disappointing loss this year. In fact, remember the game at Comerica Park when Robbie Grossman hit a home run? And
yeah,
I think you do remember that, yeah. I was going to say the play that everyone will remember from this game, and lots of questions about whether the decision was correct. Do you send Aaron Judge there? What did you think of that play? And did it take some perfect defense there by the Red Sox to get Judge at the plate?
Wasn't a great send, but I mean, look, it's easy to say now is a bad send.
Yeah.
I think being a third base coach is probably harder than it looks.
Yeah.
You have to calculate a lot in a short period of time. It's a great play by Hernandez.
Yeah.
Off the wall because Verdugo kind of misplayed it.
Yep.
And then it's a really tremendous throw for Bogaerts.
Yeah, nice tag too.
Good tag by Vladimir. Yeah. So a lot of things had to go wrong. I mean, look, yes, of course you're going to say now, well, you shouldn't have sent him.
Right.
That's easy to say.
Alex Rodriguez made it sound like it was Phil Nevin's decision was the most egregious error in third base coaching history. And, the more I thought about it, and Scott Van Pelt went over this in great detail last night, and there's no guarantee. First of all, the ball was so close to being a home run. It would have been in a lot of parks with that trajectory. Right. It's for 5 feet. You got a 3-3 game. But, you're making decisions, a million factors coming into it in a very short time. And I don't think it was a bad odds decision. I think the chances are more often than not, Boston doesn't make that play, all three elements of it. And let's say you do stop them at third base, okay? Then whether you have runners on first and third or maybe you could say second and third.
No, it's first and third.
Let's say you have runners on first and third. You say, well, okay, you got one out, but who's to say that Joey Gallo, here we go again, is going to get him in from third with one out? Turns out he popped up anyway. Right. So, it's not like that play completely cost the Yankees everything.
No, but it did. I mean, I'm not blaming Phil Nevin necessarily. I'm just saying that in that moment when Aaron Judge was tagged out,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you. I felt like the light flickered out at that point. They had that Rizzo hit the home run, Judge got on, Stanton destroys the ball, and it ends up as an out.
Right.
That's everything. I mean, it's basically a fielder's choice where the runner advances to second. It may as well have been a ground ball to the right side.
Well,
so it's like.
Speaking for all non-Yankees fans who may be listening, how did you spend the rest of your evening?
I tried to, maintain perspective. I cleaned my room. I cooked. Yeah, I try to keep things I don't want to be that guy.
Kept the knives out of your hands as much as possible.
I was that guy. I've been that guy before. It's not a good guy to be. Nobody likes that guy.
All right. What happens tonight? You got a Cardinals team that did win 17 in a row in September against the Dodgers, the best team money can buy. And when they have a possible deficiency, they just go and get a couple more All-Stars.
Right.
But the Dodgers win 106 games, and it's not good enough. And suddenly, their one performance, Adam Wainwright comes out, and if he's lights out tonight, the Yankees and the Dodgers could be done.
Which I know you love.
I love it.
I assume the Dodgers will win, but it's baseball, which is sort of the whole point about why I was not confident yesterday. I don't know. Every analytic would say the Dodgers are a better team. I think Scherzer's a better pitcher. Wainwright's obviously had an incredible career. Pretty old. We'll see. If the Cardinals win, I think it's going to kind of have to be kind of some weird baseball stuff going on. I think you could easily see the Dodgers winning 11-1. There's been some duds of wild card games over the years. Like the Giants had a habit of winning these wild card games 10-2. So I would say the Dodgers. I don't think that's a exciting take. Here's my question, Jack, and I know it works against what you're saying in terms of you want and the last night it would have been the same thing, but in terms of having the big market teams out earlier. I am not a fan of the second wild card.
Why not?
Because I think it's crazy that the 106-win Dodgers are considered on equal footing with I don't know how many wins the Cardinals have. I know they're 3 games over 500 in early September.
Well, I'll tell you 3 reasons that I love it, okay, and you can tell me why I'm nuts. First of all, instead of, you assume the Dodgers are in with their payroll, that leaves 4 spots and leaves another wild card opportunity that wouldn't otherwise be there. I think it gives you 5 teams in each league instead of 4. That's 1 out of every 3 teams. That's good. I think it led to a lot of drama down the stretch. Just look at what the American League wild card chase was like with those 4 teams going after.
But imagine what it would have been like if it was just 1.
Yeah, but you could have had one that was locked up, like the Dodgers, and if you'd had 4 of them going for the second one in the National League, and the one the Cardinals had locked up, you would have had the same thing. But the thing I like most about it is you automatically start the postseason with 2 Game 7s.
All right, how about this? How about this as a compromise? Because I was thinking about this a lot today. The second wild card I know is never going to go away, obviously, because it's more money and because of all the things that you said. It's never going to go away. So I don't actually think that's going to happen. But I do think that the wild card team should not automatically have to face the best team in the league if their record is better than the division winners.
Okay. Yeah.
So in 2003, 2004, the Yankees and the Red Sox played back-to-back 7-game ALCSs, very famous. But the only reason that happened was because the rule existed at the time that the division, you couldn't play a team in your division until the division, until the championship series, which is whatever. But it has since been replaced by a rule that, not only are the Dodgers penalized for having to play this Charlotte Cardinals team in a 1-game situation, but even if they win, they have to play the 107-win Giants in a best-of-5. Shouldn't you want your best teams to not meet until the latest spot in the postseason as possible?
Yeah, I guess theoretically that's the whole point of seeding, right? We had that here when Lansing Eastern was the second best basketball team in the state and wound up playing Lansing Everett, Jay Vincent versus Irvin Johnson in the first night of the state tournament. So, I see that, but I think that it adds so much drama and angst. And now if the Cardinals hit a 3-run homer, okay, Paul Goldschmidt goes deep, or Arenado tonight to knock the Dodgers out, I just think it's going to be one of the great stories.
That's fine. And like I said, the second wild card isn't going anywhere. I understand that. But then in football, the seeding is flexible because it always protects the best team. Like, it's also not fair to the Giants.
Yeah.
The Giants shouldn't have to play the 106-win Dodgers in a best-of-5 series. They should have two teams have a crack at the Dodgers before they have to. Right? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In football, the top seed plays the worst seed that's left. Doesn't matter what seed that is. And so I don't see why that can't also be the case in baseball. I don't know why Houston and Chicago, well, in the American League it's different because Houston and Chicago are better than the Yankees and the Red Sox this year. But in the National League, I don't see why Milwaukee and Atlanta are like rewarded for having worse seasons than the Dodgers. Already they're rewarded by having automatic entry, which I understand it's a division winner. I get that. That's fine. But at least have it be that the best team that's left. So, like, I think it should be that if the Dodgers win, they should go to play the second seed. Yeah. And then if the Cardinals win, they should have to play the Giants. I don't think it should be
the division winner with the worst record should have to play the Giants. I get it. That makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. What do you make of the Giants, and what does Vegas make of the Giants now? I know that there's a lot of Vegas money. There's a lot of Giants money in Vegas. But when you think that this team was picked to win 75.5 games, and it wins 107, that's 31.5 above expectations, and you'd cash that ticket in early August.
I can tell you that Vegas is what they're making is voodoo dolls with Buster Posey's face in them and sticky pins in them, because there's a whole lot of money. First of all, just the Giants winning the division alone cost my employer and other employers around this city a lot of money. If the Giants do win their fourth World Series in 11 years, then I might be laid off.
It's amazing to think that the Giants were picked to win, about 10 games less than the Mets and 15 less than the Padres. And here they are. This would be one of the great stories. Chase, I don't remember another baseball team that exceeded its over-under projection by 31.5 games.
I don't know about that, where the Twins and the Braves were both worst to first in 91, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what I do not know what.
But they didn't finish with 107 wins either.
No, that is true. I'm just thinking of sort of those kinds of dramatic turnarounds. Yeah, it's up there. I think it's treated a little bit differently because it's the San Francisco Giants and because they've had so much success in this century. I think if it's the Arizona Diamondbacks doing this, or the Padres, even though it's a different situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Dodgers are still the favorite, which is crazy because they have a one-game situation. But they're plus 375, which is pretty remarkably short odds for a team that, again, could be eliminated tonight before the Giants even throw a pitch.
Right.
So,
I don't think we've seen a situation where a team's won 107 games in a regular season, and they're projected to win less than 4 in the postseason.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I don't know what the projections were of the 116-win Mariners. I know they fell slightly short.
Yeah. All right, what is the Chase Michelson World Series? Who shows up there?
The Dodgers and the Rays. Sorry, I know it's boring.
All right. What about
the two best teams.
College football? Who do you like, Penn State or Iowa in Kinnick Stadium?
Those two have played some good games over the years.
Yes, they have.
In Kinnick Stadium. I'll go Iowa. As Penn State maybe not been quite as impressive as maybe we thought they were. I mean, I guess Auburn gained some credit with their win over LSU, although I don't think LSU is very good.
Right.
I think that win in Madison maybe doesn't look as great as it did in week 1. The fact that they basically got outplayed by Wisconsin.
All right, I got a prop for you. You can post this. All right, what happens first?
Yeah.
Spartans lose.
Mm-hmm.
Wolverines lose.
Mm-hmm.
Lions win.
What's the Lions' schedule these next couple weeks?
Well, they're in Minnesota Saturday, and then they're home for the Bengals. That's the next two. Something to think about.
I'll go Lions win.
Okay, all right.
I think Michigan and Michigan State will be meeting unbeaten on October 30th. I do think that will be the case, because I think that, especially with Michael Penix being hurt, I don't think Indiana's as formidable. And so that's exciting. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, I think Michigan and Michigan State will be undefeated.
Chase, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it. Also want to thank Matt Shepard. He's the television play-by-play voice, Bally Sports Detroit for the Tigers, and he was the television play-by-play guy for the Cold War. Neil Koepke in studio, My Human Hockey website, and our guest, defenseman Brad Fast, and the guy who scored the tying goal in the last minute, Jimmy Slater, and, of course, Chase Michelson. Alex, thanks so much for all your work, and we'll see you tomorrow, everyone. Have a great night.